The judge selected to review documents seized from former President Trump's home holds his first hearing.
The special master wants to get down to business on this classification issue immediately.
You're going to see a very active first 100 days of a Republican House majority.
But we understand it will be a very tight race, probably in many of the races.
That's Georgia's Republican Secretary of State who's vying for another term in that battleground state. Hi, everyone. I'm Caitlin Huey-Burns coming to you from our Washington, D.C. bureau. Thank you for joining us for Red and Blue. The special master related to the FBI's search of former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago home held his first hearing this afternoon. Judge Raymond Dearie pressed Trump's lawyers if they had any proof that the former president had indeed declassified records taken from his Florida estate, as the former president had claimed. Let's get right to the news with our CBS News colleagues. We have with me here on set Chief Election and Campaign Correspondent Robert Costa, and we also have Congressional Correspondent Scott McFarland. Thank you both for being here. It's so fun to see you in person, kind of. Scott, I do want to start with you about this special master. This is someone we've been hearing about a lot, but this is the first time we've actually heard from him at this press conference. Tell us a little bit about what the big takeaways were.
Yeah, this was a hearing, or what the court calls a conference, at the courthouse in Brooklyn, New York. It happened quickly. It was a 45-minute conference or hearing, and the judge, the special master, Raymond Dearie, got to the heart of the matter pretty quickly, pushing back on this argument, this key argument from the Trump team, that the former president declassified some of those seized records and that they were rightfully in his possession because he declassified them. Special master almost immediately asked them to show their cards, provide some details or indication of what was declassified and how the declassification happened. And the Trump legal team, in a court filing last night and again today during this court conference, declined to do so, saying to show their hand on this would compromise their defense if there's a criminal indictment in this case. So this is very much like a poker game, Caitlin, where one player wants to see another's cards and the other player is refusing to show the cards. The special master, Judge Dearie, says he's going to move as quickly as he can. There's a November 30th deadline from the judge who assigned the special master. We'll see if he takes all the time up to November 30th.
I mean, Bob, given everything that Scott just described, this is a special master that Trump called for. So what's going on here? What does he want to get out of this? And what is he getting out of this politically?
This is an effort by the Trump legal team to try to delay an ongoing investigation. They believe that this judge is someone they want to review the evidence to make sure that there are not elements of attorney-client privilege in the stash that was collected by the FBI during its search in August. And this is something that has frustrated the government because they have an ongoing investigation. There's an ongoing Office of the Director of National Intelligence assessment of what was taken.
Politically speaking, are Republicans still coming to his defense, or is everything that we've seen come out of this investigation so far, and there's a lot we have left to learn, are you sensing any kind of let's wait and see approach?
On the records case, there's apprehension among some of my Trump sources that this is a curveball for them politically and legally. They weren't expecting this to be a major thing they were dealing with in August and September of this year. That being said, most Republicans on Capitol Hill are laser focused on the midterms, and they do think about the Trump factor, but it's not necessarily just with the records case. I was up on Capitol Hill this morning, having breakfast with some key sources. And I said, how do you see the Trump legal front? And their answer, in short, was that Trump's facing all of this scrutiny, whether it's in Georgia, in Manhattan, in New York State, from the grand juries in Washington, from Capitol Hill, from the Congressional Select Committee. And at the end of the day, if something breaks before the election, especially, let's say, in late October, it's going to be a major factor, but no one can predict whether it's the records case or something else that's going to be a political factor in these midterms, if at all.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned all of the scrutiny that the former president is under. Scott, I want to ask you, because you've been following all of these cases, and, you know, it's pretty hard to keep track of how many investigations there are. Can you kind of remind us how many investigations are out there in the former president? Are any of them related, and anything that we should be looking for this week?
Well, they ultimately could be related, Caitlin. That may not be determined just yet. That's the thing about this Mar-a-Lago records investigation. It's not that it's the investigation of the former president. It's one singular investigation of the former president. There are several more. Of course, there's the investigation going on in Georgia, perhaps the fastest moving one so far, into efforts to overturn the Georgia election results in 2020. There are multiple investigations in New York City into the Trump Organization, into businesses, possibly into Trump taxes. There's also an investigation in Congress into Trump's taxes at the House Oversight Committee. And oh, by the way, there's a grand jury here in Washington investigating January 6th and the fake electors scheme that's been alleged. We don't know where that's headed, but we do know they've subpoenaed dozens of associates of the former president, an indication it's an investigation in its infancy, in its early stages, that could be going far and wide. There are multiple levels in which there are investigations of the former president. Mar-a-Lago is just one of them.
Just one of them. The other big one that we're watching has obviously been the January 6th committee hearing. And we're going to have another hearing, I understand, next week. But a key figure in that hearing has been Liz Cheney. And you heard her last night at American Enterprise Institute giving a talk. I want to play a little bit of sound kind of related to this whole thing and then talk about it on the other side.
Those who are protecting Donald Trump, elected leaders of my party, are now willing to condemn FBI agents, Department of Justice officials, and pretend that taking top secret SCI documents and keeping them in a desk drawer in an office in Mar-a-Lago or in an unsecured location anywhere was somehow not a problem.
All right, so she's saying, look, this has been the party of law and order, and now they're questioning the Justice Department. I'm curious what you thought of that statement and what else she said last night that could have been newsworthy.
Well, I wanted to go because I had covered Congresswoman Cheney out in Wyoming. Not the worst assignment, Jackson Hole. I'll take it any time.
Yeah.
CBS wants to send me back. But Cheney was defeated in her primary. Her primary opponent, who won, was actually in Washington as well yesterday. And so I wanted to monitor politically what's Cheney's message post-defeat coming back to Washington. And for her, this was a homecoming of sorts. It was at the American Enterprise Institute just over in DuPont Circle. And it's a homecoming because her father has a long-time relationship, so does her mother, with AEI, a conservative think tank. Her father was there, former Vice President Dick Cheney. So was Paul Wolfowitz, a former George W. Bush defense official. And she saw that conservative, hawkish wing of the Republican Party show up at AEI to show support for Congresswoman Cheney. She was tough on Trump, as ever, and calling him a direct and credible threat to democracy. She took him on in terms of how he's handling these legal challenges. She said when he said on a recent radio program with Hugh Hewitt that there's going to be big trouble if he's indicted, she said that's a threat to the entire American system. For Cheney, the question remains, where does she go from here? AEI is going to always welcome her into its Tony building over there in downtown. But politically, it would have a tough path in a Republican primary. I mean, just talking to Republican primary voters across the country, I was in Pennsylvania last week. I'm not sure the appetite's there for Cheney, but there is a lot of appetite in the donor community and the Republican establishment to have somebody challenge Trump to his face on the debate stage, should he choose to run in 2024. She got an interesting question. She was asked, what about a third party, someone who was an independent conservative who could maybe build a new coalition? She said, no thanks, in short.
That's interesting. So trying to challenge the party from within. I'm so curious now, as you bring up some of these old guard members, whether Democrats, in that situation would actually cross the aisle and support her. I think
she's
watching.
Still against abortion rights.
Exactly.
She still voted with Trump a significant, highly huge amount of the time. Mm-hmm. So you're right. I mean, it becomes harder for her to say she can really build a coalition. Though there is a coalition out there that's growing among some Democrats and some Republicans for democracy-focused candidacies. Mm-hmm. You see that in Pennsylvania. Doug Mastriano, Republican Trump ally running for governor, he's winning over a lot of moderate Republicans that I grew up with in the Philadelphia suburbs. They're going with the Democrat Josh Shapiro because they fear that Doug Mastriano is a threat to democracy.
That's interesting. Yeah, we'll kind of wait to see whether there is some kind of transformation. I mean, Scott, you cover Capitol Hill. When it comes to Cheney, she's got a couple of months left on her term. She's not going away yet. She's got this big bill out this week on reforming the electoral count process, which is pretty important given what we saw on January 6th. Does she carry much weight on Capitol Hill these days, or is she kind of just in lame duck mode? In other words, can she get any Republicans to her cause, or is she pretty much persona non grata?
That's a great question. She has this big bill, which I'm not understating it. It tinkers with democracy. It changes how January 6th in the future will count electoral votes. It changes the role, or makes clear the vice president doesn't have a role. It's just ministerial. Raises the threshold of the number of members of Congress who have to object to challenge the electoral count. But here's the thing, the bottom line. She has this bill on the floor tomorrow to change the electoral count. It's unclear how many Republicans will sign on because her name's on it. Does it put them in jeopardy at future primaries? It's a difficult prospect for this bill because Liz Cheney's name's on it. That should tell you something about her final 2-3 months.
Yeah, why take that political risk at this point? Well, Robert Costa and Scott McFarlane, I know we'll be talking to you a lot over the next several months as we go into the midterms. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Democrats claim they have the wind at their backs going into November after a slight change of plans. But with 6 weeks to go, anything can happen. I'll talk to one former chair of the House Democrats' campaign arm about whether she thinks they can keep this momentum going. You're streaming Red and Blue, reporting across the political divide.
An original CBS Reports documentary.
I was entitled to equal pay for equal work under the law.
Does the Supreme Court's power need to be checked?
9 Supreme Court justices, 5 of them said no, she's not entitled. That's not right.
Calls to fix the court tend to go along with the politics of the moment.
Republican-appointed justices have all tended to go in one direction, with the Democratic-appointed justices tending to go in another.
Even though it's only 9 justices, it takes 5 of them to make the law of the land.
Does it have political impact? True. Political intent? Probably not true.
If the American people don't trust the judgment of their court, that's a real problem for our democracy.
An original CBS Reports documentary, streaming now.
I'm here for you.
Take an orange? Yes. You do? Here.
America needs drivers.
And we're here to help.
What are you learning from Girls on the Run?
Never give up and to always keep trying.
If I'm a parent in your state, I'm like, what's Congress doing?
Beyond this gate is actually the border with Ukraine.
We've seen people not just opening their hearts to Ukrainian refugees, but their homes.
Where will you go?
Nobody says it like Gail.
If we can't talk about it and we can't make changes, when can we talk about it?
Gail King, CBS Mornings. Everything your morning should be.
When weather turns extreme.
The 150-mile-per-hour hurricane is still churning north.
Every second counts.
Massive and rapidly intensifying.
CBS News and the Weather Channel bringing virtual weather technology so advanced, so real.
Well over 9 feet. This is not survivable.
You'll have time to get prepared.
You want to have the advantage on severe weather days.
It just may save your life.
CBS News and extreme weather. Feel the forecast.
People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
CBS News Sunday Morning with Jane Pauley on CBS.
We have an inspiring story that started with a strange act of kindness.
Yeah. We found it.
You're kidding me?
We got it.
We share stories that lift you up and brighten your day.
The Uplift. Stream on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform, inspire, and brighten your day.
I've been waiting patiently for something like this.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream on the free CBS News app Tuesday mornings.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Caitlin Huey-Burns. With the midterms just weeks away, but Republicans are focused on the economy, while Democrats want to keep talking about this summer's Supreme Court ruling on abortion, an issue that surely fires up their base. But in CBS News polling among likely voters, 81% say the economy is very important to their vote for Congress. That's compared to 59% who say the same of abortion. And in multiple House races, many more Democratic incumbents chose not to seek re-election to their seat, more so than Republicans. That's 31 compared to 18. Many Democrats took history into account and decided to retire rather than face a potential GOP wave. So, which party should feel better in this final stretch? Well, no one better to ask than retiring Democratic Congresswoman Cheri Bustos of Illinois, who also served once as chair of the Democratic House campaign arm. Congresswoman, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. We appreciate your time. I want to put you back in your old job for a moment as DCCC chair and ask you what your odds are of Democrats keeping the House.
Oh, I won't apply any odds because all you do if you apply odds is you'll prove yourself wrong. But look, I think we've got something great to run on. We are on a roll. President Biden has signed into law the Inflation Reduction Act. We have capped seniors' out-of-pocket health care costs through Medicare at $2,000. We have capped the $35 a month for the cost of insulin for Medicare patients. We are getting high-speed internet to every corner of this country. All of that is happening as we speak right now. So I think we've got a great record to run on. And to your point on the poll that you just showed, look, I come from a district that Donald Trump won. I'm the only woman left in Congress who won in 16 and 18 and 20 in a Trump district. And so I understand the swing nature of being a Democrat in a Republican district. I can tell you this, 10 years ago, you couldn't say the word abortion without getting booed out of a room. Nobody wanted to talk about it. It was a losing issue. Now it's got people fired up. Nobody wants Uncle Sam in their doctor's office. And the MAGA Republicans they're to the point where they want to criminalize women who are only seeking health care needs that are important to them. I don't know anybody who wants an abortion, but there are women who have to have one for various reasons. And the MAGA Republicans are looking to criminalize that.
On that note, you announced your retirement before the Dobbs decision came out. If it had come out sooner, would that have kind of reversed your thinking here? Or maybe some other vulnerable Dems? Would it have given them pause and said, well, maybe this will be an issue that could help us?
No. In my case, I've been in office for 10 years. I've loved this job. And I never planned to make this a career for the rest of my life. I was a journalist for 17 years, worked in healthcare for 10 years. I've done this for 10 years. And I do a deep dive on my own life every decade. And I thought, you know what, it's time. I'm still young enough and still energetic enough that I want to have another career. So the district that I represent gets 10 points better for a Democrat. Eric Sorensen, who's running in the seat that I'm in, has a great shot at winning. But we've got great Democrats running all over the country, including in the districts where members have made a decision not to run for re-election. And everybody's decision has been very personal.
I want to talk a little bit about these competitive districts like the one that you ran in. I'm seeing a lot of ads related to crime with Democrats out there talking about their credentials in terms of law enforcement. What does that signal to you that they're taking this issue head on? I mean, does it signal a vulnerability that Democrats have? I know you've been critical of the party for some of the rhetoric.
Well, I come to it very much from a personal perspective. I'm married to the sheriff of Rock Island County, Illinois, where I've lived for close to 40 years. My husband's been in law enforcement for 40 years. And the point that I made about that is when we were all living through this, the George Floyd horrors, where there were very bad police officers who murdered a man. And that was horrible behavior, a horrible act by a police officer. But most police officers, and I know many, most are very good people. My husband has been in law enforcement, as I said, for 4 decades. It has an unblemished record for treating people respectfully. And so my criticism is, we don't want to be lumped in with all politicians. There's bad politicians. There's politicians who have gone to prison for corruption. But we don't all want to be lumped in with them. And that's what I say about police officers. There's great police officers and there's bad ones. So.
But do some of these ads suggest that Democrats think this is a liability for them?
Well, we're working on legislation right now that would make sure that we get training in the right place for small police departments that are having a hard time affording the training that they need to run great departments. We're looking at legislation right now that we may be voting on in the next week or so, or maybe after the election, that we'll take a look at making sure we're doing right by police departments. So I would say this. I've been in office for 10 years now. We're the party that is searching for solutions. We don't always get it right, but we're at least trying. You know, the $10,000 that we're giving to students to relieve them on their student loan debt. And then we have the MAGA Republicans who are critical about that. Well, what did they do when they had their guy in the White House and they were in control in the House and the Senate? You know, so we're looking for solutions. We're passing solutions. And I think that is the big difference between what we stand for as Democrats and what the MAGA Republicans are out there trying to stoke
Congresswoman,
fear.
I want to ask a quick question really quickly about the DCCC had been spending a lot of money to boost up some extremist candidates on the Republican side. Was that a mistake?
Are you referring to the Peter Meyer race in Michigan? Look, politics ain't beanbag, right? You know, I mean, in the end, you got to win. You can't govern unless you win. And on a personal level, Peter Meyer's a good guy. But in the end, the choice was by the DCCC. I'm not over there anymore, and I did not make that decision. But they're in this to win it, and I think that's what the decision was.
But does the party, you know, that's kind of campaigning as this vanguard of democracy, risk that reputation if they make moves like this?
Look, you can't govern if you don't win. And I'm not in a position where I want to criticize the guy who followed me as chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. That's his decision to make. But I know that, look, I'll harken back to Rahm Emanuel, who I consider the best chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee in at least my memory. And his recruits, how he recruited candidates, how he made sure that everything was focused on winning. That is how we won back the majority when he was chair. So, look, I know that as Democrats, we are on the right side of doing right by people. We are not looking to stoke fear. We are not criminalizing women on their health care decisions. We are not looking to put doctors in jail. We are looking to help people help themselves. We are looking to help communities. And so in the end, I just want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to hold on to this very fragile majority. And so I am not critical of that decision. I think in the end, we just have to do what we can honorably and respectfully to win.
All right. A fragile majority indeed. And we'll see how these next 48 days go. Congresswoman Cheri Bustos, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Two of the most hotly contested races this November are taking place in Georgia. We'll go there next. You're streaming Red and Blue.
An original CBS Reports documentary.
I was entitled to equal pay for equal work under the law.
Does the Supreme Court's power need to be checked?
9 Supreme Court justices, 5 of them said no, she's not entitled. That's not right.
Calls to fix the court tend to go along with the politics of the moment.
Republican-appointed justices have all tended to go in one direction, with the Democratic-appointed justices tending to go in another.
Even though it's only 9 justices, it takes 5 of them to make the law of the land.
Does it have political impact? True. Political intent? Probably not true.
If the American people don't trust the judgment of their court, that's a real problem for our democracy.
An original CBS Reports documentary streaming now.
I'm here for you.
Take an orange?
Yes.
You do? Here.
America needs drivers.
And we're here to help.
What are you learning from Girls on the Run?
Never give up and to always keep trying.
If I'm a parent in your state, I'm like, what's Congress doing?
Beyond this gate is actually the border with Ukraine.
We've seen people not just opening their hearts to Ukrainian refugees, but their homes.
Where will you go?
Nobody says it like Gail.
If we can't talk about it and we can't make changes, when can we talk about it?
Gail King, CBS Mornings, everything your morning should be.
When weather turns extreme,
The 150-mile-per-hour hurricane is still churning north.
every second counts.
Massive and rapidly intensifying.
CBS News and the Weather Channel bring you virtual weather technology so advanced, so real.
Well over 9 feet. This is not survivable.
You'll have time to get prepared.
You want to have the advantage on severe weather days.
It just may save your life.
CBS News and extreme weather. Feel the forecast. People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
CBS News Sunday Morning with Jane Pauley on CBS.
We have an inspiring story that started with a strange act of kindness.
We found it.
You're kidding me!
We got it.
We share stories that lift you up and brighten your day.
The Uplift. Stream on the free CBS News app.
Stories that inform, inspire, and brighten your day.
I've been waiting patiently for something like this.
Make every day a little more like Sunday morning.
Here comes the sun.
Stream on the free CBS News app Tuesday mornings.
Welcome back to Red and Blue. I'm Caitlin Huey-Burns. Polls have shown Georgia's most watched races are close, less than 50 days out from the midterm elections. CBS News will have the latest polling on Georgia's elections coming up tomorrow. And for more now, let's go right to Georgia, where my colleague CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian has been reporting over there for the past couple of days, and she's in Atlanta for us tonight. Hey, Nicole, good to see you there. I'm curious what you've been hearing from voters about these races. You have a competitive governor's race, a Senate race there, a Secretary of State race there. I understand you actually talked to Brad Raffensperger. What are you hearing from the voters and the candidates?
Yeah, well, a couple of things, Caitlin. I mean, look, in terms of the voters, I think one of the things that's more striking is that in many cases, a lot of these voters already have their minds made up. But on the flip side, there are a number of people that we talked to who had no idea who was running, who had no idea if they would even vote in this election. And so those are really the voters that, you know, these candidates are going to have to target. And they don't have much time to do that because early voting starts in the state in just a couple of weeks in mid-October. So that really is the challenge for all of these candidates where you're talking about the Senate race, the governor's race, and so forth in these final weeks.
And Nicole, I understand that you talked to the Secretary of State candidate, the current Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, who has become kind of a household name now. What did he have to say about that race?
I know we kind of laughed about that a little bit when I spoke with him, just, you know, that so much attention now has been put on some of these Secretary of State races in light of what happened during the 2020 election. And I asked him what he was doing to ensure election integrity and if he has any concerns considering what happened 2 years ago. Take a listen. Do you feel
stand behind
an
the counties?
sense of pressure given what happened in 2020?
No, not at all. You know, we've been working hard with the counties. The counties, you have to look at back in 2020. They worked so hard through a pandemic, and we're making sure that we give them whatever resources they need. We've been already looking at how many people they have in their precincts, you know, how many machines they have to make sure that we'll have the throughput to keep those lines short. So one of the requirements is now counties have to keep lines shorter than 1 hour. That's just for a great voter experience. So we want voters to have a good time, but we understand it will be a very tight race, probably in many of the races.
To try to keep those wait times down, especially because now with this new law that Georgia has in place, you know, for instance, you cannot give water or food to people waiting in line. So, you know, there is interest in kind of keeping the process moving, but that will be put to the test simply because the Secretary of State also noted that the state has gotten record registrations, that he is expecting record turnout relative to 2018 and 2020. So that is something to watch. I also talked to him briefly about poll worker safety because, as you know, that has been a concern given some of them facing threats. And he did say that they've been working to try to recruit more poll workers. He thinks they'll be where they need to be, but they have had to, you know, give them a little bit more money as an incentive to take these jobs.
Right. These threats to poll workers are something that is going to be extraordinary to keep tabs on. And the lengths that these administrations have been going to secure voting locations is significant, too. Nicole Killian on the ground in Georgia. We'll see you all day tomorrow reporting from there. Thanks so much for your time. And that does it for today. You can stream Red and Blue Monday through Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. And a reminder, if you want to watch previous episodes of the program, you can see them anytime on the CBS News website. Just head to cbsnews.com/red and blue.
Original CBS Reports documentary.
I was entitled to equal pay for equal work under the law.
Does the Supreme Court's power need to be checked?
9 Supreme Court justices, 5 of them said no, she's not entitled.